And it did. But lately we learned about several Orwellian-like intrusions on our privacy. Most recently that the National Security Agency tracks our phone calls and some emails. This is a terrible threat to American liberty, says Congressman Justin Amash. So, Congressman, why? They're just mining data. They're not listening to our phone calls.
Well, it violates the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment protects us against unreasonable searches and seizures, and this clearly violates the Fourth Amendment. And the problem we have is that the government is gathering information using what's essentially a general warrant, which was outlawed by the Constitution. They're going after people not on the basis of any suspicion, not on the basis of any probable cause, but just because they're people, just because the information is useful to the government. And that's what our founders expressly prohibited with the Constitution.
Well, it's useful to me, too, if it keeps me from being blown up by a terrorist. And the fact that they're just scanning everybody in some ways makes it seem like less of an invasion of privacy.
Well, the reason the founders believed it was wrong was because we didn't want the government collecting this kind of information. They put the Constitution in place to prevent the government from injecting itself into our personal affairs. And you could do away with a lot of the Constitution and argue that maybe that makes us safer. You could also do away with the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, and Eighth.
I don't want to do that.
And, well, someone could argue that and say, well, look, now the government can control everything. They can prevent all crimes. I doubt it would work very well, but that's what they could argue. But, of course, we'd have a police state, and that's expressly prohibited by the Constitution. The reason we have a Constitution is to prohibit government from doing this.
But leaving the constitutional argument just for a moment, can you make this live for me more? I don't see how my privacy is being invaded by these massive scans.
Well, that's fine if you completely trust the government. Our founders didn't trust the government. I don't trust the government. The government can use the information to, for example, blackmail corporate executives. They could use the information to persuade members of Congress to vote a certain way. And they can use the information against the public. We don't want a culture in our country of distrust, of fear. My parents came from the Middle East. They came from regimes that were tyrannical. And in those countries, people were afraid to talk on the phone. They were afraid to talk to their neighbors because they were afraid everyone was a spy for the government. We don't want that kind of culture here in this country. It has a damaging effect on our culture.
You can't see it here. I made up this list of 100 things I hate more than or as much as the NSA spying. And where do we rank this? I mean, you believe in liberty. Is it worse that they do this data mining than the fact that they employ 22 million people, that they say where our kids must go to school, that we have a $17 trillion deficit, that they pass Dodd-Frank, that there's bailouts? How much can we be angry about?
I think it's all bad, but when you have direct violations of the Constitution, when you have someone trying to infringe upon the Fourth Amendment or the First Amendment or the Second Amendment, those are serious threats against our liberty, and more serious in many ways than the kind of financial exploitation that the government's involved in. It's true that the government is bloated. There's been no bigger advocate for balancing our budget and getting our debt under control than me, but at the same time, we have to look at this stuff, our civil liberties. That's why we fought a revolution back in the 1700s, is because of civil liberties violations.
And in the 1700s, we got the Fourth Amendment, partly because British soldiers were going in people's homes and taking stuff and searching your most private space. How is looking for patterns in a billion phone calls anywhere like that?
Well, the problem is the legal theory they're using. The legal theory they're using is that any time you use a third-party provider to store any of your documents, and most papers today are electronic, they're digital. So most of the papers and effects that we have in modern times are digital papers and effects. And the government is using the false and flawed logic and argument that that is all available to the public. Once you put it out on a third-party server, the government has the right to obtain it because it's no longer private. And that's ridiculous.
And what do you say to the claim that maybe 50 terrorist incidents were stopped?
We don't even know if that number is accurate. Most of the information is classified. We can't get to the bottom of it. And frankly, a lot of the court opinions that deal with these cases are classified in a way where members of Congress can't get the opinions. Part of what we're doing with our bill is trying to make sure that these cases are available to members of Congress. Right now, I actually can't read the court opinions that are interpreting laws like the Patriot Act.
Well, that certainly is a problem when they say it's secret. Trust us. Congressman Amash, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Now, the other